Lola the mosquito lives in fluffy gardens. Lola lives here, at Pot Pie House to be precise. Now, you might already be thinking that Lola's house looks a little strange. You would be right. Lola's house is very silly indeed. And inside this very silly house lives a very silly mosquito. Lola is just about the silliest person you could ever meet. If you had a new pair of lovely shoes, you would wear them on your feet, wouldn't you? Of course you would. But Lola, being very silly, would wear them on her head. Silly Lola. Just look at how Lola sleeps when she tucks herself up at night. Her legs are all up in the air, and she's all the wrong way round. Isn't she very silly? Yes, silly Lola. Lola just loves being silly. Our story begins one silly day. Lola was walking backwards through town when she spotted a sign. It read, "Lovely Hat Contest." Oh, how delightfully silly, said Lola to herself. The winner would get a prize for having the loveliest hat. Now, one thing you might not know about Lola is that she loves to dress up. And she especially loves dressing up in lovely but silly hats. So Lola decided to buy herself a brand new hat for the Lovely Hat Contest. Now, if you were to buy a new hat, you would go to a hat shop, wouldn't you? Not Lola. Lola went to the butcher's. "Hello," said the little penguin who worked behind the counter. "Goodbye," said Lola to the little penguin, who was rather confused. That was a very silly thing for Lola to say. "I'd like a new hat," said Lola. The little penguin looked around his shop. He didn't seem to have any hats for sale. In fact, if he did, that would be very silly indeed. But he did have sausages, so Lola bought some sausages and went on her way. "Goodbye," said the little penguin. "Hello," said Lola as she walked out, backwards. Then Lola decided to try the bakery for a new hat. The little penguin looked around his shop. He didn't seem to have any hats for sale. In fact, if he did, that would be very silly indeed. But he did have a loaf of bread, so Lola bought that instead. "Goodbye," said the little penguin. "Hello," said Lola as she walked out, backwards. Then Lola tried the grocer's for a new hat. The little penguin looked around his shop. He didn't seem to have any hats for sale. In fact, if he did, yes, that would be very silly indeed. But he did have fruit, so Lola bought some fruit instead. "Goodbye," said the little penguin. "Hello," said Lola as she walked out, backwards. And that day, Lola went to every shop one by one to find a new hat. She bought some eggs, some milk, a clock, and many other things which wouldn't be silly at all, except for the fact that what she really wanted was a new hat for the Lovely Hat Contest. But as luck would have it, the very last shop she tried actually was a hat shop. They did have hats, and Lola bought one. So the day of the Lovely Hat Contest arrived. Everyone gathered at the town hall, and it was all very exciting. This year, Wee Reg the puppy was the judge. He would decide who had the loveliest hat. Wee Reg walked up and down and looked at all of the lovely hats. Everyone had made such an effort and wore the loveliest of lovely hats. Royston the mantis wore a very shiny new black top hat. He was sure that he would win. It was a lovely hat. Mavis the pony wore a lovely yellow straw hat. She was sure that she would win. It was a lovely hat. Fudge and Lily the kittens wore matching hats with feathers. They were sure that they would win. They really were lovely hats indeed. But wee Reg thought that one hat was more lovely than all of the others. It was a very silly hat. Can you guess who had this very lovely but very silly hat? It was Lola the mosquito. Lola's hat wasn't just a hat. Lola's hat was beautifully decorated with fruit and bread and sausages and milk and soup and a clock and everything that Lola had bought that day. It really was a very silly hat. Silly Lola. Wee Reg announced that Lola's hat was the loveliest hat of the contest. Then he brought out her prize, a shiny new hat stand. That could hold a lot of silly hats. Everyone cheered and clapped for Lola. They were all very happy for her. And that is the story of how silly Lola the mosquito won the Fluffy Garden's lovely hat contest. These days, when you see Lola, you might be lucky enough to see her wearing her silly prize-winning lovely hat on her feet while standing upside down. Silly Lola.